What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your Leadership Garage, where we're committed to your personal and professional development. I'm Craig.
And I'm Mike, and welcome back. We are just absolutely happy that you're with us tonight. And you know, it's been a good 2 weeks.
It has, and we're so stoked. We really wanted to get all this in the last episode, but we just weren't able to. We're running up on 45 minutes of your time, and we know it's valuable. So we're going to finish off today in our formula. G equals P plus D plus G plus U.
Right.
You got it?
Yeah.
G equals P plus D plus G plus U. And for those of you who didn't see the first episode, you're going to have to go back, or the second episode, the first episode in this series.
Right.
You're going to have to go back and check out P plus D, because today we're going to give you G and U.
G and U.
But before we do that, do a quick recap.
Right. Tell us what
we
P
talked about. Right. P was positivity and the impacts it can have in your personal life and your professional life, right? And some of the ways that you can increase positivity in your life as well.
Right. And then D was decision making. You know, we talked about good decisions and bad decisions and the impact of both. And then we also discussed a little bit about how to make better decisions for you as a leader, as a person in general.
Absolutely.
And now, you know, now we're going to be covering the G and the U. And so G is giving.
Absolutely. You know, our favorite topic.
Yes, this is by far, I think, topic. Something that we're very good at. Yes, you know, and I don't want to do that in a boastful, prideful way. This is an important topic. It's again our foundation of who we are as people and what we feel is needed in leadership. And so we talk about giving and the importance of giving as a leader. When you are a leader that is trying to become an impactful leader, one of the things you can do is give of yourself, your time, your talents, your money, so many things that you can do to give. And you ask yourself, well, you know, what does that do? Well, you know, that increases value. You know, whenever you're giving of your time, talents, and money, you are increasing value in someone else. And that's the importance of giving. I have a quote here real quick. It says, your time or your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. And I believe that is true as a leader. You know, whenever you're pouring into to somebody, you become much more valuable than if you were just taking from people at all times. And one of the positive aspects of giving is when you are a giver, you are an impact. The impact that you have on others. You know, you can impact folks to grow. You can impact folks to increase in their self-worth. You can do that. And you have a great story about the 100 guy.
Yeah. You know? Sebastian Terry. If you guys haven't seen the video called 100 Things, actually, if you Google it, you'll see there's an ESPN video. It's like 7 minutes. I highly encourage you to watch it. It's a great story. He lost his best friend. They were in their mid-20s, and he was just lost. He was in a dark place, and he didn't know how to get out of it. And he was sitting on a beach one day, and he asked himself, you know, if he could go back and ask his friend, did he live a fulfilled life? Even though it was so short, did he live a purposeful, fulfilled life? And he didn't know the answer, but the question that came back to him was, did I? You know, have I lived a purposeful, fulfilled life? And so he created this list of 100 things that he was going to do, you know, to kind of create this passion for life, right? And he's in this hole and he wanted to climb out of the hole. So he thought if he created these 100 things that he would create his passion for life. And they were crazy things like skydive naked and kiss a celebrity. I mean, they were kind of outlandish. A lot of them were very outlandish. So as he made his way through his journey, he started gaining some popularity because obviously you start doing some of these things, it gets attention very quickly. And he was invited onto a talk show in Australia where he's from. And they asked him, hey, what else do you have to do? Because he was already checking off some of these things. And I'll never forget it. He said number 26 was help a stranger. And just so happens that somebody was watching the show and they sent him a note. It was somebody from the United States. And she said that her brother had a dream to run a half marathon, but he got Lyme's disease and it crippled him. Basically, could hardly talk, couldn't walk. He was in a wheelchair. And she said, if you will push my brother in a half marathon, it would mean the world to him. And so he did. He flew to the United States and he pushed this gentleman 13 miles on a half marathon. And he said it was such a game changer because when he crossed the finish line, all these people were coming to him just so inspired and motivated by the act, the kindness, and the energy that came from this one thing he did, giving back to somebody. He said it changed the whole trajectory of his life. Then number 26, which was giving to somebody, a stranger, something that they couldn't give for themselves. Yeah. And now, you know, he lives in LA and he's created this organization that flies all over the world and makes people's dreams come true.
Wow, that is amazing.
I know, it's so cool. But it just goes to show the impact that you can have by, you know, giving back to somebody.
So, right. So he was giving to somebody. He was, you know, I think it started out as really kind of something that he wanted to do for himself.
Exactly.
And then, but where it changed was when he gave to somebody else.
Right. It really had meaning when he saw the contribution that he gave to somebody else. And then, you know, the emotion and the fulfillment that came with that giving.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I wonder how many folks, you know, saw that and how it changed their lives and in their thought process of giving.
Well, here we are, Mike. Yeah. I don't remember when that video, it's probably been a year and a half now, and I'll never forget that video.
Right. You're still talking about it.
I'm still talking about it. And actually, I gave a speech on this when I was traveling back in the Air Force about this specific thing.
Interesting.
Because it touched me so much. So, great. To your point, it's not just the people that are there.
Right.
It's all the people that are watching us.
Right.
You know, watching us give every day and set an example of graciousness and, you know, and giving. And I think it's a great reminder that, you know, when we do things with other people's or interests at heart, not our self-interest, but other people's interests at heart, it's such a powerful tool.
Right. And, you know, and by him doing that, he really kind of increased himself as far as the abilities that he is able to do now because of where he's at. So obviously he started a company. He's going around the world. He's doing great things. Well, that kind of leads us into the second part of the importance of giving, you know, as an influencer. You know, I'm a work with John Maxwell on his team and you know, being an influence. He always talks about being an influence. Well, you know, people ask, well, how can I be a better influence? Well, giving is a perfect, you know, opportunity for you to influence other people's lives.
Right.
You know, and, you know, I think I was telling you a story because I'm a real estate agent, on my job and, you know, you do things. I had a young couple come to me and they were like, hey, we really want to buy a house. We're excited. And so they got pre-qualified like they're supposed to. And we were out looking at houses. And the more we talked, the more I realized, you know, you're not ready. You're not ready to buy a house. You're not there maturity level. You're not there financially. You know, I know that you really desire that. And, you know, I think I could have sold them a house. I could have made a paycheck, but I thought it was more important to guide them into a different direction. So I poured into their life on saying, these are the things that I feel that you have to do. You know, it kind of like the first sergeant came out of it, you know, and, right. And so, you know, so I poured a little bit into them. I gave them my advice, my wisdom, my direction. Mm-hmm. And, you know, lo and behold, we come, you know, a year and a half later and they're back and they've saved their money and they've done what they're supposed to do. They've increased their credit. They got out of debt and now they're ready to purchase a home. And, and what's great is through them, not only are they back with me, but they've told others about me. And so, which is, you know, now I have my own little personal ambassador, you know, out there. And I think that's one of the important things whenever you're in, you know, pouring into people and you're pouring into the lives of people and you're giving of your time, talents and money and those type of things, the people that you're doing end up, you know, helping you
reciprocating.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, I think the most important about that is I wasn't looking for them to purchase a house. Right, you know, it would have been totally fine with me if they didn't ever purchase a house with me or if they used somebody else. That's not what I was worried about. What I was worried about is being, they're being house broke. And, we teach divorce care at our church, and I see people, one of the main reasons people go through a divorce are financial issues. And so, I just didn't want them to see them there. And as a first sergeant, I've seen that 100 times over and over again. And so it was important to me to show them. But I really think if you are doing this, if you are giving to be an influence, an influencer, that you need to be doing it with not I do it and then you owe me back. That's not how. That's the wrong attitude. It's the wrong mindset. You have to do it, never thinking that you're going to get or gain anything back. And that's where the influence comes from.
The people who don't do that, they're seen. That's so visible. People will be seen. Right? If it's not honest, we talked about that word in the last episode too. If you're doing it for all the wrong reasons, people are going to know it.
Right. It
becomes very obvious. Right. When somebody wants something and then you advise them against it because you have their best interest at heart, as I mentioned, that's powerful. Right? And they're going to respect you. They're going to trust you. And that's exactly what happened. You told, at the expense of thousands of dollars in your pocket, you told them, hey, not now, right? It's not right now. If maybe you'll be ready in the future, but at the expense of the thousands of dollars in your pocket, you told them to, hey, come back later.
Right. And absolutely.
It's hard to fake that. If you're trying to fake that, we're gonna see right through you. People will see right through you.
Right. Which is the next part. Whenever you're a giver, you're giving of yourself and you're influencing people, but you have to be authentic. Mm-hmm. You cannot be a giver and be a faker. So, those are the folks that are doing it for, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and then once you have somebody that owes you, that's just, you're taking from them. Really. You're putting them into a position that as a leader, you don't want the folks below you to owe you anything.
Right.
You're the leader. Yeah. And so, you need to make sure that you're doing it with a good heart, an open heart, and you're doing it for them. And like you said, if you're doing it for the right reasons, it'll show, and you need to be authentic. And one of the things that you have to be authentic, because some people go, I don't know what to give.
Right.
I don't know how to give. I don't know. I don't have a talent. I don't have anything. But the funny thing is just like in so many things that we talked about, being positive and decision making, we talked about how you can start now.
Right.
You Absolutely. Can turn the trajectory that you're in. I'm having trouble.
Trajectory. I got it.
But you got it. Right. But when you can turn,
instantly
in and on instantly, or on and off instantly by making a choice and saying that I'm going to give myself, I'll give what I have, and it doesn't have to be money or time or talent. It could be either or. And I think we talked about this a while back when we were coming up with this, because some people say, oh, well, all you want is money. All you want is my money.
Yeah.
Well, that can be important. And I think both of us, we sponsor children in different countries, and we give that's the only way we really can help. I'm not in Haiti and you're not
Africa.
And so adding what we can financially to those folks' lives are, if you ask those children, I bet you they would come back and say, be able to tell us just how important that was.
Right. Absolutely.
And so, and that's authentic. We're not sponsoring kids because, to check a box. Mm-hmm. We're sponsoring kids because we really genuinely care. And I think that's the part about being authentic. You genuinely have to care about people. And if leaders do not genuinely care about people, and if they're only about the bottom line, if they're only about where they're going to be in their position, I think that they are doomed to fail.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's interesting. So, especially in the Air Force, we talk about this a lot. It's a performance report bullet, to go do something, right? To volunteer somewhere. But I never believed in that. I believe that if you're going to go volunteer, you go volunteer because it's meaningful to you. And if it's meaningful to you, then it's going to have meaning to the person that you're giving to. But then when you put it on that page, it's meaningful on that page too. Right. And it's not just a checkbox that we have to do something in order to, get this performance report through. But I think it's really important that when you volunteer for these things, to Mike's point, that you do them because you want to do them. They're meaningful to you, and they're meaningful to the whoever you're giving to.
Right. And some people, they say, well, I'm just not good at it. I'm not good at being, some leaders, I'm not really good at giving with my heart. I'm not an emotional, I'm not a caring person, but some of the things that you can do as a leader. And I thought this was great, and we've always talked about praise in public. Yeah. Just you do something good, you find somebody and you say, hey, great job. And the reason why that comes to mind is just the other day, I was talking with a young man and he ended up becoming an officer. His wife is friends with my wife and we ran into each other and he goes, yeah, you used to be my first sergeant. And I didn't remember him. Mm-hmm. And I go, oh yeah. And he goes, yeah, the first time I met you, I ran into you and you said, hey, are you so-and-so? And he goes, yeah. And I told him, hey, I heard you do these great things and blah, blah, blah. And I gave him a $50 gift card to the Outback. And I said, take your wife out. And he was like, wow. Now, granted, just, to be totally transparent, my organization purchased those cards. Right. So, but I got to pick. Yeah. And so I picked him and I said, take your wife out. Y'all have a great night. I appreciate everything that you do for our organization. Yeah. And years later, I'm retired. I don't know the guy from Adam, and he remembered that. Yeah. And now he's an officer. Not that made him an officer, but the fact that he knows something, he's like, you know what? I remember that. And so if he remembers that and it was that impactful for him, he's going to turn around and do it for his airmen probably. So, which is that's thing.
It. The chain of effects that it has, long-term effects that it has when you give like that. I mean, it's just, but when people receive, and you brought up a good point when we were prepping for this, right? That when you give, you take, and then you give again.
Right. One of my favorite authors in the world, his name's Tony Evans. He was talking about, you give to get, but you don't stop there. Cause a lot of, there is a philosophy out there. Well, if I give and then I get, that's great. I'll give to get. But he says, you don't stop right there. He goes, you give to get to give again. Right. And it's like a river,
That's right. It just keeps flowing.
Right. It just keeps flowing. If you get stagnant, and bad things happen at that. But if you just keep flowing, that river just keeps flowing. So you give to get to be able to give again. And excuse me. Which is extremely important whenever you're in a leadership role, I feel. Yeah. You are doing things that will increase not only your influence and your trajectory in life or career or family, but when you're giving to others and they are bringing them up, you're bringing those folks up, they in turn will bring folks up. Yeah. And they, in turn, will bring folks up. And I think that you can create a culture that way. So
here we are back on culture again, right? The giving culture. How cool would that be?
Giving culture. I know.
I mean, a giving culture. If you were in a powerful, culture where that was the norm, was a giving culture, how cool would that be? I mean, that's pretty impressive. Which is why a lot of the first sergeant councils are so close.
Right. Yeah. And the impact they made. Several years ago. I was in Afghanistan and it just came up on my timeline not too long ago of a picture of me and this young lady with a coat. And I remember this. And so what happened was I was over in Afghanistan. I was going out to the hospitals and to the schools and it was the hardest winter they had in 20 years. And so I thought, hey, let me just ask a favor. So I put out there on my Facebook, hey folks, look at these kids. They don't have any coats. It's a really hard winter this year. Is there any way that some of y'all could send some coats? Out of that, about 15,000 coats came. So we were able to distribute coats. And that particular picture was great because that day was a mail day for the hospital. And one of the guys, and I'm not sure why, if he was a single dad or what, I didn't speak the language, brought his daughter who did not have a coat. And so I had a bunch of coats, but really there were no kids. She was the only kid. And so I thought, well, let me just give this kid a coat. And so I gave her a coat. And one of the people that responded was like, I recognize that coat. oh my goodness. So this person gave, and then they saw the results of their giving, which lifted them up.
Yeah.
And then of course the person, the young lady who received the coat was extremely grateful.
Yeah.
Her father was extremely grateful. And here we are, we're winning hearts and minds when we do things the right way.
So what's the, we talked about when you give, you get, and then you give again though. But when you get, what's that feelings, what's that creating in us? And we talked a lot about resilience and, being positive, but man, there's not much better than.
It's almost like a high.
Yeah. Right.
Not that I've ever been high, but but just kidding. It really is, a joy, something more than just being happy. This is an internal, feeling that will last a lot longer than an emotion of being happy. Yeah. This is something that is meaningful. You've impacted somebody's world. Right? You've made a difference. And when you have that, I think it leads to being positive.
Yeah.
I think it leads to better decision making because you're giving because you're making the decision for somebody else. You're thinking of others, which allows you to take you out of the picture.
Yeah.
And so I believe that when you take you out of the picture, sometimes that helps you make better decisions.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, one of the foundations that we feel is not just a part of us and Leadership Garage, but is important for leaders in general.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting point. We talk so much lately about self-care and how important that really is, right? But really, when we talk about giving, on the surface, it sounds like we're focused only on somebody else. But the reality of it is that can give us self-care. Inherently, it comes back to us and it creates joy and happiness and, purpose and passion, which fills us up and makes us more resilient and gives us self-care. So the problem is you have to do something maybe a little unnatural, especially when you're in a bad state, right? If you need energy, you conserve the energy because you have to fight through whatever your situation is. And it feels unnatural just to give in that moment. But the reality of it is that expression may come back and fill your cup and
absolutely
right. And make you actually be able to endure whatever the circumstance is.
Absolutely. And it can change the person's character too. And I say that because of a sitcom. The other day I watched The Big Bang Theory, one of my favorite, and it was Christmas time and everybody knows Sheldon. He's a little quirky and he was worried about exchanging gifts with Penny, the young lady. And so he went out and bought all these gift baskets. And so what he was going to do is, when Penny gives him his gift, he was going to fake digestive urgency or whatever, and he was going to go back and pick the size gift equivalent to her gift.
Yeah. Well,
then she gave him a napkin that had Leonard Nimoy or Spock's DNA on it, and so he went back and picked up all of the gifts and gave them to her, and was overjoyed and to the point where he even hugged her, which is so out of character. So, but I think it goes to show a good point. When you're doing this, you can change somebody's perspective in life.
Yeah.
You just never know where somebody is. When you're giving and you're pouring into them, it can change the way they believe. It can renew that mind that we talked about with positivity. And it's just, it's just a good thing to do.
Right. Yeah. There's a great book out there. Some of you follow me on Facebook. I posted it called The Go Giver.
Yeah.
Mike is actually finishing up on it right now. It's such a great read. And I highly recommend that you guys take it. It's a really short read, a day or two to read through that. It follows a gentleman through this path of what success looks like in a business, in a career. And that if you give, the more you give, the chances of,
you being successul. Well, and then making contacts and
And so, and we believe that, and we've seen that. Absolutely. We actually have seen, if I go back in my career and think about all the successful people, and there's a lot of them that we've been around, including your father-in-law that we talked about in the last episode, they give. They give consistently.
They are givers.
They're givers, absolutely. And so that's
very successful.
Yep. That's good stuff, Mike. Let's move on to our last piece of the formula. Uncomfortable.
Oh, hey. This is very uncomfortable.
I'm uncomfortable talking about uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
Right.
Uncomfortable is necessary.
But why is it necessary?
If you want to accomplish your goals, it's the G before the equals. I think it has to happen. Listen, life can be difficult sometimes, right? And if you set your mind to, especially these long-term goals, I'll never forget when I was in San Antonio going to basic training, and there were 200 plus of us in this class, and the young man up front said, talking about enlisted force structure, there's only, for those who are not military, bear with me for just a minute, only 1% of you, potentially could reach this rank, the highest rank that you could potentially get to. But only, 60% of you are going to get out before 12 years. So really that's only 40% of you are going to stay in for a career. So the 1% really doesn't mean anything. None of you are going to reach this rank. So good luck. Right. And I remember sitting in that room going, who's this guy talking to? Oh, he don't know me. Apparently, I took it as a challenge that he was telling me I wasn't going to be able to do something. I'm an 18-year-old punk kid who's super competitive, right? Yeah. But from that day, I was like, hey, that's my goal. Little did I know that in order to reach that goal, there were so many times in my career that I had to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'd never forget another story, great story. I'd gotten in some trouble. I was an A1C station, Airman First Class, E3. In the first couple of years of my career, I was up in Panama City, Florida. And again, I had gotten into some minor trouble, and I went to the chief, the senior enlisted guy in the unit, and said, hey, what do I got to do to crawl out of this hole I'm in? Yeah. And he said, you need to volunteer for something that nobody else wants to do.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that can't be too hard, right? So I rolled back into the office, and literally 10 minutes after I get into the office, I get the knock on the door. Hey, we need somebody to volunteer to do urinalysis duty. And for those of you who don't know what that is, essentially is you volunteer to go watch people pee in a cup so they can test for drugs. So
it's not just watching people, but you have to watch it leave their body
and go into
a cup.
You get the picture. And you have to do this all day. Right. And so I thought, all I could think about was those words. You got to volunteer to do something uncomfortable. And so I reluctantly volunteered. And, I became the guy to do urinalysis duty for a long time, right? To dig out of the hole I was in. But, it worked.
What did it do for you?
It's so crazy that when I raised my hand, I'll never forget the expression on our NCOIC's face. He's like, really? You'll volunteer to do that? Yeah, I got it. I mean, literally, it changed started to change the perspective of Airman Neary at the time, right? And who I was and my character in the organization. And, at that moment when I volunteered, there was no way I was going to be eligible for this below the zone early promotion that we were, I was coming up on not too long in the distant future. But sure enough, that one decision to do that led to other opportunities because, hey, Neary will do it. And those opportunities built up. And sure enough, I was put in for that early promotion, which was, a big hole that I climbed out of, all because of that chief's advice that said, hey, go do something that makes you uncomfortable.
Now, did that, while you were climbing out and you stepping outside your comfort zone, did that build your confidence in any way to be able to go further?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think, well, especially when you're in a hole, right? It's sometimes hard to see outside the hole when you're in the hole, but every step up, you get to see more of the sky, more of the, what's out there. And I think, but every time I got one of those opportunities, then I could see clearer and clearer and clearer, very similar to what we talked about in the positivity and that tunnel vision you have. But the further you step out, the wider the aperture gets and the more opportunities come to you and the more confidence that you build. And so, every opportunity that came, I gained more confidence. I started to get more trust. I mean, so many good things happened, but only because, I put my pride aside and got really uncomfortable in that one moment. And there's a million other times I started thinking about this.
One of my favorites is tell them about your speech.
Well, I forgot to tell you, I've told this story to Mike a couple of times, but so I was E4 not long after this incident. Actually, I moved to Iceland and doing very well, and I was the airman of the year for the wing. So basically the base installation, and so the commander came to me and said, "Hey, we're having the IG teams coming in. Obviously, they're in Iceland, so they're flying in, and we want you to do the intro for the team at our all call." And so they were going to be in the theater. There's 1,000 people in there, and Airman Neary is going to get up there and introduce the IG team. The inspector general team is coming in, do inspection, make sure we're managing our processes and programs appropriately. So I was nervous, and I said, "Sir, I don't know. I'm not a good public speaker. That's not something I enjoy. It scares the heck out of me. So can we just record it instead of me getting on the stage? Can we just record the video?" And he said, "Yeah, that's no problem at all." So, the public affairs team got a hold of me and said, here's what we want to say. We're going to put it on cue cards, and then we'll just set up the camera and you just read the cue cards. And I went, "No, I don't want to read the cue cards. I'm not a good reader, and I'm going to mess this up. We'll end up doing 50 takes of this, and it'll be terrible. So I'm going to memorize this." And it was 1 page, single space typed.
Wow. Holy cow.
And they said, "There's no way." I said, "Give me 2 weeks and I will memorize this entire page." And she said, "Okay, but if we get 2 weeks, because we have to get this done in 2 weeks. If you don't have memorized, we're doing cue cards, whether you like it or not." So I got it. So for 2 weeks, I think I eat, breathed, and slept that 1 page. I mean, it was wrinkled, wet. It was terrible. So come the day, and I did it. I memorized. She turned the camera on. She said, "Go." And Mikey, I'm not kidding you. I memorized that thing word for word and got it out on the first try. Nice. 1 page, single spaced. And I was so proud of myself about, getting through that, because that was tough. I had to sacrifice. I got really uncomfortable trying to get that. Well, the day came, and, it's a pep rally like environment in there. Music's playing. People are all fired up. The IG team's in there. Commander does his intro, and then bam, the video goes up, and there's Airman Neary. And it's like 2 minutes and 15 seconds long, this whole thing that I read or memorized. And about a minute into the video, I started licking my lips. Like,
mm-hmm.
And then by minute 45, I look like Mr. Ed. I mean, I look like there was some peanut butter on my forehead. I mean, it was so obnoxious. It was so obnoxious, and people are laughing. It was so. I was mortified, and they had me in the front row. They'd introduced me. I'd stood up, did my wave like I was somebody special, and then they showed the video. So terrible. And I said, I will never do that again. And then little do you know, I'm selected to go to Airman Leadership School, got to fly all the way into Langley, Virginia from Iceland. And the very first speech at Airman Leadership School, I passed out.
Really? Love that.
I was so nervous. I just didn't want to recreate what I had done earlier. But the reality of it is, now fast forward 30 years and through several Toastmasters, which those of you who don't know, it's a private org that teaches people how to speak publicly.
And get out of their comfort zone.
That's exactly what I did. I knew that if I wanted to achieve the goal, what the MTI, the training instructor at basic training, told me I wouldn't be able to achieve, that if I was going to accomplish that goal, then I was going to have to learn to speak publicly, at least comfortably and to some degree. And passing out was not an option.
Yeah.
So I went to Toastmasters, and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And now it's second nature. I want to be up there. Now I want to be up there.
And you know what that led to, folks? So Craig and I had to go to Australia because they had a general coming in. And so there was a gentleman there that was not able to speak, and nobody really wanted him in front of anybody because he was such a, I would say, not confident person. And so when we went up there, we were testing the waters, and of course it was horrible. And we got this 2-star coming in. And so we leaned over and looked at the airman first class.
Yeah.
And we said, "You're going to give the speech," which he was like, and we're like, "We're going to need you to get out of your comfort zone. You can speak. You don't have a speech impediment.
Yep.
You can do this." And so we gave him a day. I think that's it.
Right. We did.
We just gave him a day, and man, that dude knocked it out of the park.
He absolutely did. Absolutely. And what an impression he made in that moment.
Right. To a 2-star general.
Absolutely. So I think there's so many benefits of getting out of your comfort zone like that, the confidence that you build when it succeeds, and even learning to deal with the failure when it doesn't, right? Learning to sit in that theater and take in what happened, but then bounce back from it. Right. You become so much more focused when you know that you have to overcome something. Mm-hmm. The focus that you have to be able to overcome it, it just increases and magnifies. And when you practice that, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. Right. Like anything else. It allows you. I think it's a great example for folks.
Right. It has to be an example. I mean, when you're stepping out of your comfort zone as a leader, and you're showing others that you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and then and sometimes you might fail, and I think that's a perspective that we're going to speak about here in just a second. Yeah. But really just putting your foot out there and getting the opportunity and being nervous and showing folks that you can do it, even at the lowest rank to the highest rank, of stepping out that comfort zone, builds confidence in others
and sets an example. Absolutely. I think it creates high standards. If you're continually pushing your own personal limits, it sets a high standards for others too. They know that, they have to pick their game up, if they're going to meet those high standards. So, I guarantee you, we talked about this when we were talking about giving too. I don't know too many people, successful people, happy people, right, that have been just comfortable their whole lives.
Right.
And I'm not talking about, things that happen in your life that you don't have control of, things happen. I'm talking about something that you did deliberately to grow yourself. Mm-hmm. I know very few, if any, people that didn't do something that got them really uncomfortable to be able to create that level of success.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's great whenever you get out of your comfort zone like that and you do well, it builds that confidence, but what's rewarded is repeated. So I think when you do well and you are rewarded for doing well, you are willing to step even further out of your comfort zone.
It's like a stair step.
It's a stair step. You go.
Absolutely. It's funny too. I think our uncomfortableness really identifies our potential. Right? If you think about that, most of us don't know what our greatest potential is. But that's where you have to get uncomfortable to start to identify where your potential is. Yeah. Right? Sometimes low self-esteem. There's so many things, negative thoughts. Yeah. Right? We call it bleep head.
Yeah.
Bleep head.
Yeah.
You have that bleep head, right? And that bleep head will not allow you to understand what your true potential is. But if you can get over that uncomfortable feeling, you start to see where your potential is. And that's so empowering.
Right. And what I'm also hearing you say is that if you're not getting out of your comfort zone and you're just staying stagnant, you are losing out on your potential.
Oh, absolutely.
You're missing out. You're not showing what you have, the capabilities of doing.
Absolutely. I believe that in my heart of hearts. I mean, if you're not getting uncomfortable, that's where the space of potential is. And I think it's wasted potential. If you're not getting uncomfortable, it's wasted potential. Yeah. And I also think too, that getting uncomfortable is just like muscle memory, just like anything you do in the gym. The more you do it, the easier it is. Mm-hmm. It's funny, when we were prepping for this, you asked me what gets me uncomfortable. I couldn't really, I'm sure there is something out there that gets me uncomfortable, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head, because, a lot of those things I've addressed over the years, right? I knew they made me uncomfortable. I wasn't good at them. And then, you go work on them and you get uncomfortable. And then the next thing comes, you get uncomfortable, and you're just okay with uncomfortable at that point.
Right. And what's great about that, especially as a leader, I believe, is the adaptability. So, you are so used to getting out of your comfort zone. When a curveball is thrown at you, you're easily, you can handle it.
Yeah.
You can say, this is, it's out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You've learned how to adapt due to you getting out of your comfort zone.
Right. And I think it increases in speed too, right? The more times you get uncomfortable, the less time you spend in that space and the faster your trajectory goes.
That's true.
Right. So the more that bottom step may be way bigger than the top step. The top step is probably really small because you don't spend a lot of time in being uncomfortable because you're so used to it.
Interesting. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So I just think back at all the speeches and, there's a lot of them over the years. And, the later in my career, the less stressful they were, less uncomfortable I was with it, the better they got because you're not stressed about it. And, you prepare, you don't worry about it. You're more focused, you're more goal oriented. It's setting a great example. I mean, there are all those reasons we talked about.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I had breakfast the other day with a mutual friend of ours, and when we were talking, he brought up an example of you giving a brief. He goes, yeah, I remember when Chief Neary was giving this briefing and he goes, I was just in awe because he was hitting everything. So just imagine, because you made a huge impact on his life and he ended up becoming a first sergeant. He promoted up. He did great things. He won shirt of the year, all kinds of stuff. But just ponder back in that day you passed out.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have done that, the impact that you might not have had on him.
Yeah. That's so crazy. 20 years later, 20-ish years later,
isn't that weird?
Which is so crazy. The journey is so awesome. I mean, I look back and go, man, if I hadn't gotten comfortable, you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple warnings with being uncomfortable. Cause you don't, especially young in your career, you don't really know when the end is, right? And I think there's especially today, because information's easier to get, things come quickly, people will give up too soon.
Yeah.
In their uncomfortable period, they give up too soon, they quit too soon. And I think it's a tough thing to know, it's an instinct, I guess, to know when it's right to get out. But I would say you stay in it until, you have to back out. Yeah. The risk, the impact that it's going to have, but you stay in it because I think there's value in staying in there as long as you can.
You got to be in it to win it.
Yep. Again, because, we talk about the wasted potential. That's not what wasted potential might be the worst thing ever. I mean, the best ideas that were ever thought of live in a graveyard. The best ideas ever thought of live in a graveyard. Think about that. It's wasted potential, and so I think you can't quit. When it gets hard, you cannot quit. And I see that a lot. I see, especially when people get under stress, right? They tend to walk away in those uncomfortable moments.
Or what if I fail? What if I fail?
Bleep head.
Yeah.
They get bleep head.
Yeah.
And they walk away. I mean, but I think it's super valuable to push your way through, right? And you just grow so much in those uncomfortable moments. Yeah. And that's the reason why we include it in this formula, because I don't think it's possible, right, to accomplish that, especially if it's a big goal.
Right.
I don't think you can accomplish that big goal without being uncomfortable.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of hard things that had to happen to make even this happen.
Yeah.
We could have easily said, no, we're not going to do this, blah, blah, blah. But look at where we're at.
Yeah. I mean, you guys haven't seen it, but we've actually recorded way more than 3 podcasts.
Yeah.
And it has been crazy, a little uncomfortable at times. Going, man, we really stink at this, but
but you can't quit.
Nope, we didn't quit, and we're not going to quit. And not for you, not for us, not for our family. We committed to this, and we're not going to quit.
Matter of fact, out of these came even better ideas because we get feedback, we hear things, we see things, and it has created even better ideas and better thoughts.
Absolutely. So. Which brings a good point. I've gotten a lot of messages for people asking me to talk about X or Y, asking us to talk about those things. So we got them. And for those of you who send them to me, don't worry about it. They're coming. We'll get to them. And so, and if there's anybody else out there that has any questions you'd like us to tackle, hard ones, please shoot them to us and we'll be sure to address them. Hey, make sure you like our YouTube channel.
Yep.
Please subscribe. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. So you know that when these things are coming out, we appreciate you. This formula has been really cool. We've had a great time with this. G equals P+D+G+U. Remember all those. Don't forget.
I'm not a math guy. No.
Don't worry. You have these. You can go back and refer to these anytime you want. if you want a good discussion on those things.
Absolutely.
And we'll break down the formula for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate your time and your feedback and the fact that you're coming to us and watching us. So we really appreciate y'all. We wouldn't be here without y'all, and we wouldn't want to do it without you. So thank y'all very much.
Yep. Appreciate you. We'll see you guys on episode 4. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Leadership Garage, where we're committed to your personal and professional something
development.
Thank you. We'll do that again. Golly, why this? I know, right? Not this one, like 500 times.
Right. When you are a leader or a person of, I just screwed that up. So you're going to have to cut that.
Right.
So
got it.
Anyway, if okay, 1, 2, 3.